Hello and welcome to this Chess Club game review. And today I'm going to talk about a simple way to improve your chess that's probably often overlooked. So this game was played at the local chess club. I played against Jeff and he had the white pieces. So the game begins with d4, which is usually a good, more strategic opening as opposed to d4, or excuse me, e4, which is usually more tactical. So let's see what happens here. Now, what is a simple way to improve your chess? Well, one thing that's very important is that after each move and before you make each move, you should always ask yourself, well, what will change in the position after that move is made? And that can really help you avoid a lot of blunders. It can also help you see things, as we'll find out in this game. If I would have done that, I would have, found a mistake that was made. So, that can help you not only to prevent losses yourself, because you can avoid blunders, but it'll help you to see the blunders that your opponent might make. So the game continues with c6. I've been trying to work on the Caro-Kann. If they play e4, then I can play d5. Or if they play the pawn to c4, I can still play d5, and it's a Slav defense. So Jeff plays c4, and now after d5, we have the Slav defense. And he continues with knight to c3, a book move. And I just continue with knight to f6. So we're just developing pieces. And a lot of times in the opening, you're kind of on autopilot, just getting those pieces out quickly. And we kind of were here. But you have to ask yourself, what changes in the position? Ask yourself that before you make a move, and that can help you avoid mistakes. So Jeff plays queen to c2. According to the computer, this is an inaccuracy that swings the game slightly in black's favor. Now it's saying that I should immediately capture this pawn. And then I could go after this pawn as well, but they could just defend that by pushing this and then targeting my other pawn. So in the game, what did I play? h6, kind of a waiting move and a preventative move. It was an inaccuracy. Now the game is 0.46 in favor of white again. So it looks like I should have just captured that pawn. And if I would have asked myself, well, what will change in the position if I capture that pawn? Maybe I would see that I could take the pawn. If they push to protect this pawn, well, maybe I could try and push forward here, but that could be risky. But I'm not going to go into that line. Let's continue what happened, or continue with what happened in the game. So Jeff decides to attack in the center, and he plays this move, and it's a mistake. So see if you can figure out why that's a mistake. Well, now, if Jeff would have asked, well, what will change in the position once I do this? And this is a little bit trickier, so, it's understandable that this was overlooked. Because now I can capture, and I'll have a discovered attack on this pawn here, which can no longer be protected by pushing the pawn to e3. So in the game, we have this. Now, what does Jeff play here? He captures, and it looks like that's the third best move. Even better would be what? Bishop up to e3 to protect this central pawn. So in the game, we had capture, and I go ahead, capture the pawn. So now I'm up a pawn. And when you're up in material, you want to try to avoid trading more pieces. So the best move here looks like would be bishop to d3, just adding another defender to this knight, developing a piece. And sure, I would probably go on and just capture and start trading material down. But then Jeff would have two developed pieces, and I would only have my queen developed. And he would be closer to being able to castle, perhaps. All right. The game continues with capture, and the computer says that's a mistake. So now I just recapture. Jeff develops his knight, and e6. So this is a mistake that I made. If I would have asked myself, what will change in the position after I make this move? Well, maybe I would have realized, oh, my bishop is really blocked in, which I did see that during the game, but I thought, well, maybe I can go here, develop the bishop along the diagonal, but it would have been better, apparently, to play knight to a6 with the threat of jumping forward, perhaps attacking the queen, maybe. And also, if the bishop develops, well, then I could fork the queen and bishop. So anyway, that would have been a better move. If we go back, what else would have been a better move? Probably just to go to e5, because then I would have more space and I wouldn't have blocked in my bishop. So I made a mistake here. And now we have bishop developing, and that's a missed opportunity. It looks like, bishop to d2 would have been a better move. But either way, black has an edge now. So I deliver a check. This is an inaccuracy. I thought, well, I'll continue trading pieces down and go into an endgame since I'm ahead of pawn. But once again, the computer prefers knight to a6. So block, computer says this is a great move. And now I'm just going to try and trade down more material. So I capture. Black is ahead, but it's a smaller edge now. After the queen captures, I'm only ahead by less than the equivalent of half a pawn, even though I actually have an extra pawn. And it's probably mostly because this this bishop is just really blocked in here. So I go ahead and castle. Computer says that's best. Jeff does likewise. And now I have to do something about this bishop. So it looks like bishop to d7 would be the best move. But I decide to bring my knight out, and it's saying that's the best move now. I thought, well, maybe I can just jump my knight up here, trade some more material. But the rook develops here. Apparently, it may have been better to bring the other rook over. But either way, black still has the edge here because of that extra pawn. But this prevents me from jumping up here with the knight. So instead, I think, well, maybe in the future I could go in the other direction. This is a mistake, apparently, and the game's almost even after this. It would have been better to play rook to d8, so just centralizing a rook. But after this move, Jeff played b3, and this was probably a little bit too passive. It does set up a nice group of pawns here, but now my queen is aimed at that rook, which, that rook's probably going to move to the center anyway, so maybe that doesn't mean much. What should have been played? Apparently bishop to e4 would have been the best move. So after that, the recommendation is to ignore this pawn and just let it be captured and play rook to d8. If I try to defend that pawn with this move, let's see what would happen. Well, the knight could just be captured. So another great example of, before you would make a move, make sure you see how the position changes. So I can't even go there. I can't even go, move this knight to protect this pawn. So, this would have been a much better move, attacking that pawn. what could I do? They still recommend rook to d8. Then I would be lined up on the queen. But in the meantime, this pawn could be captured. My rook would be under attack. So the recommendation is this. Capture. My rook's under attack now. But it looks like it would be better to attack the queen first. And then after queen to e3, bishop to b7 here. And, the game would be about even after all that. But in the game, we had b3. And I go ahead, jump my knight forward, attacking the bishop. This was a missed opportunity. Once again, I should have brought the rook into the center. So now, here, this is a perfect example of why you should always see what changes in the position after the move has been made or before you want to make a move. If Jeff would have asked himself, well, if I bring my rook up here, what will change in this position? Well, maybe he would have realized that this other rook would be unprotected and that my queen is attacking it. Now, I didn't take a look at this move because I was kind of on autopilot thinking I need to activate my bishop. So my next move was going to be here. Or I was going to capture the knight and then move my bishop. So that was on me too. And we kind of laughed about this. Jeff made a blunder, but then I kind of made, I don't know what you want to call it, a reverse blunder where I had a great move and didn't find it. So I missed, it was just a big missed opportunity. So, I developed my bishop, missing out the winning move of capturing the bishop. But the game went on to be more instructive by not taking that rook. So we continue on with the rook centralizing. I go ahead finally and line up on the queen and the bishop here. So the queen sidesteps that. I go ahead and capture, trading down more material. The rooks double up. And here I push the pawn, activating my bishop. The game continues with trades. Now, computer doesn't like this, saying this is a mistake, that it would have been better to play, let's see, queen to e5. So if this was played, it would immediately attack my queen. And what would be best here? It looks like capturing the queen would be best. And then, the knight would capture. And here it looks like, because both of these rooks are piling up on my rook, that I have to capture here. So after capture, then what? F6, chasing that knight. Or bishop to e4. And black would still have an edge. But the game didn't go that way. We were back to this position. We had a capture. I capture. Jeff trades down, more material, which kind of helps me in the end game. So, for any beginners, or learning players out there, make sure that if you're behind in material, even by one pawn, that you should not trade down more pieces. You should be trying to trade the pawns off. Because the less pawns on the board, the less of a chance that one of them can be promoted, with me having that extra pawn. Okay, so I capture, and now at this point, black is ahead by the equivalent of 2 pawns. So he jumps his knight forward, and here I decide to start attacking, so I threaten a mate in 1 with queen and bishop. And then we continue with a blocking move. The computer does not like this, saying that instead F3 would have been better. Because with this move, the bishop is still preventing the king from coming forward. After a check, the only thing that can be done is to block with the queen. So, it looks like f3, that would give the opponent more options. They could move their king up here if they have to. So that would have been, probably a better continuation. But even with this, black has an edge. All right, the game continued with g3. I deliver a check, and now the only move that does not mate would be to block with the queen. So, of course, queens are confronting one another. And here, I thought, I'll just continue with my plan. Trade down material and try and use my extra pawn in the endgame. But it would have been much better to, maybe start attacking these pawns with my queen. Or, the best move, according to the computer, is to go here and attack the knight. So I play this, an inaccuracy, trading down material, following through with my plan. But it looks like, maybe another option is this. To move here or here even, queen to b2. That attacks the knight and the pawn, so that probably would have been a better move. What's the recommendation here? Queen to e1, protecting the knight. Then I should just go ahead and take the pawn. So that's probably what I should have done, but instead we trade off queens, and here I start centralizing my bishop, thinking I can go up here and harass these pawns. So the pawn pushes forward. This is a mistake. Apparently it would have been better to bring the king forward. So let's take a look at that. King to e2. Now, does it work to go after the pawns? Let's find out. Bishop to b1. Here, it looks like the best thing to do would be to move the king here. Because now, if I go after these, that would be a mistake because of queen to c2 and the bishop would be trapped. Excuse me. All right. So in the game, he pushes his pawn. I push mine, chasing the knight. And here the best move apparently is maybe knight to g3. And then you can swing back here. But my opponent decides to launch forward here, trying to use his knight to help target these pawns, maybe with the idea of going here and trying to get something going. All right, so the final conclusion of the game, and this is kind of instructive. You have to watch out where you place your knight, that it doesn't get trapped. So I move forward, start getting closer to that knight. We both start bringing our kings into the action, which is important in the end game because you don't have many pieces, so you need to use your king to help you. All right. The knight was under attack. The best move is to go back here in the corner, but now the game continues with king stepping closer here. And I thought, well, if I attack his knight, it could potentially be trapped here. So he starts trying to break things open, maybe to get his knight out somehow. But the game continues with bishop targeting the unprotected pawn. Capture, capture. And now the knight is pretty much trapped. So my bishop is attacked. I go ahead and take this pawn. And this move makes sure that the knight is trapped. So my opponent tries to bring his king around, but it's too late. And here he resigns because the knight, can't go here or here because of the king, or here because of the bishop. And so this is where the game ended. So the piece of advice, that can really help, improve your chess in a simple way. And I know when you get, especially in blitz games, you don't have as much time, or you get into the action in the middle of the game, and sometimes you won't ask yourself what changed in the position after my opponent's move, or before you make a move. Ask yourself, all right, once I make this move, what is going to change in the position? And hopefully that'll help you avoid blunders, and also see mistakes made by your opponent, especially the one I missed where the rook was left where I could have captured it, and I was kind of on autopilot with my plan and overlooked that. All right, well, thanks to Jeff for this game, and feel free to leave comments out there. Like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching, and have a super chess day.